Okay, welcome to my YouTube channel again. Today I want to talk about the electromagnetic induction. I want to teach about the electromagnetic induction, for which I'm going to have an introduction on the electromagnetic induction. Introduction. Now, when an electric current passes through any given conductor, they are usually associated magnetic fields. At the same time, the reverse is also true, such that when a conductor is placed in between the magnetic field and is moved in the magnetic field, an induced current is produced. Now, the phenomenon at which a conductor is moved inside the magnetic field and a current is being induced, that phenomenon is known as the electromagnetic induction. Now, for further explanation about the electromagnetic induction, we are going to describe a simple experiment which was performed in the laboratory. Now, the experiment we have a conductor AB, which is made of copper. This AB is made of copper. Then we have a U-shaped, this one is a U-shaped magnet. At the same time, we have a galvanometer placed at this particular point. Galvanometer. Then we have connecting wires. Now, it is observed that during the experiment, it is being observed that when a conductor is moved to cut the magnetic field, the magnetic field here is north and south. In between is a magnetic field. These straight lines are known as the magnetic field lines. When the conductor is moved in the magnetic field, the pointer at the galvanometer deflects when the conductor is moved. Let us say that you move the conductor downwards, the galvanometer pointer is going to deflect. Now, again, when the conductor is held stationary in the magnetic field, the pointer does not deflect. At the same time, when the conductor is moved in the opposite direction as the first one, now the conductor is moved now, the pointer is going to deflect, but in the opposite direction. What does it show? It shows that when a conductor cuts a magnetic field, a current is being induced. Now, the induced current, as a result of movement of the conductor in the magnetic field, is the one which makes the pointer of the galvanometer to deflect. It implies that when when current flows, the pointer must be deflect. Now, at the same time, when the conductor is held stationary, there's no current that is being induced because this conductor must cut, it must move through the magnetic field. Now, let us look at the factors that determine the size of the induced EMF. Factors determining the magnitude of induced EMF. The induced EMF is just like the induced current, because it is the induced current that is being produced as a result of movement of a conductor in between the magnetic field. The first factor, number one, is known as the nature of the magnet. Number two, the nature of the magnet now. The second factor is the size, that is the strength of magnetic field. The strength of magnetic field. The third one, we have the length of the conductor. Now, in this case, the length of this copper, length of conductor. But at times we usually have a coil, the length of the coil, size of the coil. The bigger the conductor, the more the induced EMF. At the same time, the stronger the magnetic field, the bigger the induced EMF. The last factor is the speed at which this conductor is moved in the magnetic field. Now, in the same experiment, it is observed that When the conductor is moved faster, the galvanometer pointer also has a greater deflection. And when the conductor is moved slower, the galvanometer pointer is not going to deflect as compared to the way the conductor was moved faster. So in a faster deflection, a faster movement of the conductor in the magnetic field brings a greater deflection. It means that more current is being induced. But when you move it slowly, less current is being induced. Now, having done that, let me talk about the two laws of electromagnetic induction. The laws of electromagnetic induction. So the laws of electromagnetic induction, we are only going to talk about the two. Number one is called the Faraday's law. Faraday's law. The Faraday's law, this guy proposed that the magnitude of induced EMF, the magnitude of induced EMF is directly proportional to the rate of change of magnetic flux linkage. The rate of change of magnetic flux linkage. The rate at which you are moving the conductor to cut the magnetic field. The second law is known as the Lenz's law. Lenz's law of electromagnetic induction. This guy proposed that the direction of induced EMF, is such that the induced current it causes to flow produces a magnetic effect, which opposes the change producing it. Now, in the electromagnetic induction, we are guided by the two laws of electromagnetic induction. That is the Faraday's law, which states that the magnitude of induced EMF is directly proportional to the rate of change of magnetic flux linkage. The magnetic flux linkage. Then the Lenz's law states that the direction of induced EMF is such that the induced current which it causes to flow produces a magnetic effect which opposes the change producing it. Now let us look, for example, the illustration of the Lenz's law of electromagnetic induction. Now suppose we have a bar magnet which has a north polarity and a south polarity. Then this bar magnet, we want to move the bar magnet inside the coil. Then the coil is attached to the galvanometer at this particular point. Then the direction of the motion of the magnet is inside. let me call this end A, this end B of the coil. We want to know how is the galvanometer going to deflect. Through which direction, towards which direction is the galvanometer going to deflect. Now, in application of the Lenz's law of electromagnetic induction, the direction of induced EMF produces a magnetic effect which opposes the change producing it. Now, from the diagram, we have a magnet being moved inside the coil. The motion of the magnet is inside the coil. Now, for the current to be induced in this coil, the motion of the magnet must be opposed, because the induced current that is going to be induced here is going to produce a magnetic effect to oppose the motion. Now, the motion of the magnet is going inside the coil. Now, for the current to be induced, the motion must be opposed. Look, if this end of the magnet is North Pole, for example, I assume this end is North Pole and this other end is South Pole. Now, when you have the end of the magnet that is coming in contact, that is entering first in the coil, is the South Pole, and this one is a North Pole. It means that when this one is a North Pole, the motion is not opposed. Remember that the motion must be opposed. The North Pole will automatically attract the South Pole so that the motion now is not opposed. Now, for the current to be induced in this coil, we should have this end to be South Pole. This and this one is North Pole. South and South. South and South, they are repelling one another. And the motion must always be opposed for the current to be induced. Now look, if this is a South Pole and this one is a South Pole, because the magnet is moved inside the coil, the South Pole is going to repel the South Pole. Tick. The current is going to be induced as a result, because the South Pole is opposing the South Pole. The motion of the magnet is inside. Then the induced current produces a magnetic effect. So this South and North is the magnetic effect produced by the induced current. Now, the end A of the coil will acquire a south polarity, and this end is a north polarity. To determine the direction of induced current, we use the Fleming's right-hand rule. The Fleming's right-hand rule such that the four fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, will always point toward the direction of the current, while the thumb usually points toward the direction of the North Pole. From the diagram that I have on the board, the North Pole is on this other side. So this thumb is pointing toward the North Pole. The fingers will always point toward the direction of the current. Now the fingers are all pointing downwards. It means that in the coil, the current is facing downwards. Now, the pointer of the galvanometer usually points toward the direction of the flow of current. This is the direction of the flow of current. The galvanometer will always point toward the direction of the flow of current. Another diagram I have, when I have a magnet, which is a north, and a south, which is inside a coil, north and the south. Now the magnet is being moved out of the coil. This is the direction of the motion. How is the galvanometer going to deflect? How is the pointer going to deflect again? First of all, as stated in the Lenz's law of electromagnetic induction, the motion must always be opposed for the current to be induced. Look, this is the direction of flow of the direction of the motion of the magnet. it is out of the coil. I want to see what will be the polarity at this other end. For example, if we say this is a south pole, it means that this other end is north pole. But the motion is out of the coil. Already south pole and south pole, they are repelling one another. So the motion must always be opposed. So it means that if the magnet is moving out of the coil, there must be a force that is trying to oppose the motion. It's trying to bring the magnet, to attach the magnet inside the coil. South pole and south pole, they are already repelling one another. So in this case, it is still repelling. So there's no work that is being done. For work to be done, this end must be north pole, and this one must be the south pole. So look, north pole is attracting south pole. At the same time, when you move the magnets out of the coil, because they attract one another, the motion has to be opposed. North and south, they are attracting one another. Now, in this case, we are trying to separate these two magnets, which are in contact to one another. You are opposing the motion of the magnets. So the direction of current now, again, you apply the Fleming's right hand rule. The thumb will always point toward the direction of the north pole, while the fingers point toward the direction of the current. North pole, current are facing upwards. So this direction now, the pointer, galvanometer of the galvanometer pointer will point towards the direction of the flow current, which deflects to the right. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more updates. I will be teaching you maths and physics. So for this time, I am teaching physics now. In the next video, I'm going to upload the YouTube. I'm going to teach you mathematics. Thank you.